Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. I am glad to be back on the screen with you today. So thankful to come and actually have a conversation with you out there in the social media world. What are we doing today? So, we're going to be back here today again with Captain Holly Weaver and Colonel Roy Danks. They're going to talk to us about his life as an Army surgeon, and I hope that you enjoy today's discussion. So, let's jump right into it. Awesome, awesome. So I do have the pleasure of introducing to you on my panel today, Captain Holly Weaver and Colonel Roy Danks. Hey everybody,
Hey,
how is
hey.
everyone doing today? Welcome, welcome. Glad to see everyone's faces. Glad to see we're gonna have a good discussion today. And just glad to see you all. It's been a while and it feels good to be back, reunited, and it feels so good. How is
It
everyone doing
feels
today?
so good. Well, first of all, it's Friday Eve. Can I get an amen for that?
Amen,
Um,
amen.
so it's a great day. It's a great Army day. It feels
Mhm,
so good to be back. I was on a little bit of a hiatus
mhm.
for maternity leave. Gave birth to my third child. So now I'm back in action.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So it feels good to be back doing these live streams. And, I'm just so excited to have Colonel Danks here and talking
Mhm.
about his experience as a doctor, as a surgeon, and just kind of how he ties his life in the civilian world into the reserve.
Awesome, awesome. Sir, welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself, sir. I mean, the people know who Holly and I, knows who we are, but we'd like to know who you are, sir.
Okay, well, my name is Colonel Roy Danks. I'm a general surgeon in the Army and also a flight surgeon. Uh, Captain Weaver reached out to me to talk to you guys today about my experience in the Army as a general and trauma surgeon. And I think it's a pretty good story, and we're trying to encourage people to look into the Army Reserve as a part of their career.
Awesome. So you're a general trauma surgeon. What exactly, what exactly does a general trauma surgeon do in this military thing that
Yeah,
we're in?
yeah. In the military, we do a lot of deployments lately. Over the past, I've been in 13 years. I've had 4 deployments. We get deployed, where the war is going on and take care of trauma patients. We don't just do trauma. We take care of other patients too. We do some general medical work, and it's a lot of fun. We go through the same officer training that everybody goes through to become an officer in the Army, and with the wars that have been going on for the past 20 years, a lot of us have been on a lot of deployments. I've deployed with the same people repeatedly because there's kind of a shortage generally in the Army and specifically in the reserves of qualified, specifically surgeons.
Okay, so you're saying that there's a shortage of surgeons in the military. Holly, would you like to talk to us about, do you have any questions for Colonel Danks regarding his medical expertise or background?
Absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to talk about or ask is, how did you come across the opportunity to be a surgeon in the Army Reserve, and just, what made you decide to apply and become a doctor for the Army?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Captain Weaver. I actually met Captain Randy Wilson. He was with the recruiting battalion there in Kansas City in 2006 at a conference that I was speaking at. And at the time, the wars are really going in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they were looking for burn surgeons, and I had trained as a burn surgeon, and actually at the time I was working part-time as one. I really wanted to join then, but didn't have the support that I needed, on the family side for it. I held out a year or two, and they were still looking for burn surgeons. And the purpose was because of all the burn injuries that were happening in the theater, they wanted a burn surgeon on the ground in one of the two theaters to direct the surgeons out at the forward hospitals and the caches, or the combat support hospitals, on how to take care of burn patients. So having had the background, I was assigned to the Institute of Surgical Research, which is the burn center for the Army at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. And within, well, I don't know, 6 months of finishing officer basic course, I was deployed to Baghdad to be the what was known as the theater consultant for burns. So my job there was not only take care of burns on the ground in Iraq, but take phone calls from both theaters, from physicians taking care of burn service members, so that the service member got the best care possible prior to being transferred to the next, what we call echelon or level of care. And so the initial reason was so I could be a burn surgeon. But you're not just a burn surgeon, just like you're not just a doctor in the Army. You know, there's other jobs. So I did trauma also. And over the past several years, I've had multiple deployments, mostly and primarily as a trauma surgeon.
Oh, wow. Did you have any other questions, Holly?
Okay, so I had a follow-up to that. And first I want to say, you know, when you were talking about being the burn surgeon consultant downrange, you know, that kind of just gave me chills, because if you truly think about, you know, your position and what your role was, you were having an impact on, you know, soldiers' lives and their outcomes when you were deployed, because, you know, it's so important to have that initial and immediate care, and doing the right thing to preserve skin integrity and to make sure that they have a good outcome. So, you know, I just kind of want to like bring that up for a moment. You know, like you have truly impacted so many lives, and you know, your guidance has helped so many soldiers and their outcomes. So that is really a truly amazing thing. I had chills when you were talking about it. It looks like Captain McMurray has a comment, and
Ooh, she does.
If Otis, you want to go ahead and bring it up?
Yeah, let's bring it up real fast. And I want to also encourage everyone who's participating. We have close to, it looked like almost 70 folks that's actually live checking out our discussion right now. If you want to go ahead and send your questions in, go ahead and send it on in, and we'll post it on the page. And so we encourage you to send your questions, your comments, etc. Okay, so the first question from Captain McMurray, she asks, what has been one of your most challenging experiences while serving? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, that's a tough question. You know, the answer from a medical standpoint, when I was in Baghdad in 2009, we were not only doing a lot of trauma, but we were taking care of a lot of civilian burns. When I hit the ground there in January of 2009, I think we had 7 pediatric burn patients in our hospital, several of them taking up ICU beds. And we had a young guy that was burned at a military base in Western Iraq who was flown to us, whose burn was over 50%. And the rule was back then that burns over 40% were made expectant. And in the military, what that means is that they're going to die and we are not going to put resources into them. And we weren't real busy at the time. And I called kind of the guy that was my boss or commander at Fort Sam in Texas and said, I've got this guy that I think we can save, but I need kind of permission to do it. And he said, well, if you're not busy and you don't think it's going to kill a bunch of resources, I guess go for it. And he ended up having a 54% burn, and we used some really innovative techniques to skin graft him and save him. And he walked out of the hospital about 60 days later, which by any burn center standard is a phenomenal outcome. We actually published that. The other was in 2011 when I was in Afghanistan, we had a day where we had 13 or 14 injured in a mass CAL event. I think we did more than a dozen traumatic amputations that day. It was 8 hours of nonstop operating where we went into the OR with the first 2 patients and didn't leave for more than 8 hours, continuously operating on them. So those are some of the most challenging from a patient standpoint. From a non-patient standpoint, my last deployment to Afghanistan this year was being in Western Afghanistan on a very remote base with absolutely nothing. When we arrived, we didn't have food. We were eating just MREs. We didn't have running water. We barely had electricity. And from a standpoint of just remoteness and nothing to do, and very dry, arid, hot weather, it was very challenging too. So, there's all kinds of challenges when you're deployed. Sometimes it's, supply challenges of wanting to take care of very complicated cases and not having the resources. And then there's the mental challenges of being stuck somewhere with limited communication and just, almost dying of boredom, for lack of a better term.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear, sir. More than anything, I want to say thank you for sharing this very candid information that you shared with me. I think more than anything, our toughest times really builds our resolve. It also builds our character. It shows how much you may love the field that you're in, or it can challenge you as far as, hey, did I make the right decision to be in the field of work that I'm in? So I really appreciate you sharing that information. I just want to share to the viewers, of course, we've also got Captain Weaver's information scrolling on the bottom there. So if you want to reach out to her, if you want to join our team, if you want to learn about what is it to be a medical professional in the Army, she can put you in that right point of contact. So check out her information scrolling at the bottom there. You could send her a text. You could follow her on IG. You could follow her on LinkedIn. Send her an email, and she will square you away. But thank you again, sir, for sharing that prior information there that you shared. We actually have more questions coming in because people are actually enjoying what they're viewing right now. So let's go ahead and pop up another question that we have.
You're very popular, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a very good live stream that we've got going on. Let's see. Another question that I see coming from Ms. Kelsey Crow says, how do you feel the Army trauma surgery experience compares to civilian?
That's another good question. I mean, there are comparisons that you can draw. I mean, when I do trauma in Kansas City, we might get 2 or 3 gunshots a night and operate a couple of times on some complicated cases. But the difference in the Army is, number one, what your resources are. So when you're out in a more remote location, so when we got to Afghanistan in 2011, they patted us on the back. The guys who were relieving patted us on the back, took us for Thanksgiving dinner at the Chow Hall, and said, oh, by the way, the CAT scanner's been boxed up and sat outside because we don't want to do CAT scans on the local nationals anymore. So the challenge now is taking care of multiply injured patients, whether they're service members, enemy combatants, or civilians, without a CAT scanner, which, as a trauma surgeon in Kansas City, I've never been without a CAT scanner. I can scan anybody if I have time. In my last 2 deployments, I've not had a CAT scanner. We actually didn't even have an ultrasound at my last deployment. We had an X-ray machine that we unboxed that was brand new, and we figured out how to use it. We finally got ultrasound, but again, no CT scan. And so the challenges are the resources, and you simply just can't have a CAT scanner. Our job in Afghanistan this year was to be with the Special Operations Group, or the Green Berets, and travel with them. I mean, you carried the operating room literally on your back. Everybody carried a part of the OR on their back. And, that's the challenge, and nothing like the civilian world in that regard.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, sir, it seems that every situation scenario that you mentioned, I'm like, wow, you've really got to love this field, and you've really got to love being able to take care of folks more than anything, to really keep that love and that resolve within you. So again, thank you for sharing that situation as well. Captain Weaver, would you like to ask?
Yeah, I have a quick question just to piggyback off of the information that you just told us. Like you were talking about how you don't have the equipment available and you kind of just have to use the resources that you have there. Can you just expand on the type of leadership, skills, whether, soft skills that you have helped hone in on or, refine based off your deployment experiences? Because I think, there's something to be said about, there's people that are medical professionals and doctors, and they provide, excellent medical expertise, but then you add in the Army profession and what we have to do to think with innovation and use leadership. So kind of what are, some skills that you have either really developed or sharpened those skills, since serving as a doctor in the Army?
Yeah, so, kind of Otis pointed this out, is that you have to have a lot of resolve. It's a lot about mental toughness. And I think in general, people who come into the Army realize that you're not going to have a lot of the resources that you're used to in your civilian job, but you still tend to come across people who are the naysayers, that we can't do this because we don't have X or Y. And part of being a leader, especially out of one of those distant FOBs or forward operating bases, especially with young soldiers who are medics or whatever, is showing them and planning in advance, what are we going to do if? What are we going to do if we get multiple people shot up and we literally have one OR bed, one anesthesia machine, one anesthesia provider. So it's all about showing them that we have ways to make adjustments or adjust fire on any situation and preparing in advance for it. I think that's the big part of leadership for whether in the civilian side or on the Army side, is teaching people how to think outside the box. And a lot of times there's not even a box. You just have to be thinking, what am I going to do if? And I'll give you a really cool example. When I was in Baghdad in 2009, we had a contract security guy. He was from Uganda, and he got some horrible pulmonary disease, infectious disease. I don't know what it was, but he was in our ICU on the ventilator, and he went into renal failure. Well, we don't have dialysis in Baghdad. I mean, we didn't need it. We got rid of everybody within 24 hours. And this guy needed dialysis and he was going to die. Well, we had a general medical officer an internist who was also a kidney doctor and nephrologist over in the medical clinic. And we went to him and said, what can we do? And he said, well, let's do peritoneal dialysis, where you put the dialysis tubes into the abdomen and dialyze him. He said, I can tell him how to mix it up in the pharmacy. And if the surgeons can put some tubes in his abdomen to do it with, we can dialyze this guy. So we literally put chest tubes that are made for trauma patients or thoracic surgery patients, into his abdomen, surgically inserted into his abdomen. The nephrologist made what's called the diacylate, or the fluid that we're going to circulate through. And we did dialysis on this guy at the bedside in our ICU in our little hospital in Baghdad. That's thinking outside the box. That's leadership, of showing people that just because nobody else has done it doesn't mean we can't do it today.
Mm-hmm. Wow. My
mind is like blown right now.
Yeah, mine is too. I think, for a lack of a better term, a word that I think of is you're almost kind of MacGyvering some medical specialty. The need is there, so you have to figure it out using the skill sets that you've developed over all these years, and you come up with innovative ideas to address the issue right then and there. What did they say? Invention is the mother of necessity?
Or maybe necessity is the mother of invention.
You know what I mean. I got you loud and clear, sir. So, sir, we've got actually more questions coming in, and we've actually got some complimentary comments coming in as well. So let me go ahead and post one of those complimentary comments to show that people really appreciate the work that you're sharing and your experience that you're sharing. And so that comment comes in from Mr. Clifford Lovett. He said, thanks for sharing your awesome experiences. We've got some others there as well. And we've got another good question here. Let's go ahead and pop up this question here. And it comes from Miss Esther, I don't want to mess up your name, but Varghese, I think that's how you pronounce it. Esther Varghese. She says, how has practicing as a surgeon in the Army changed over the course of your career? How do you see it changing in the future? Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that's happened is, I mentioned when I was in Iraq in 2009, we were at a physical facility, a hard-sided facility. It was actually an old Saddam hospital in Baghdad in the green zone or international zone. And we had a CAT scanner, a blood bank, a lab, radiologists, psychiatrists, nurses. We even had obstetricians, gynecologists, thoracic surgeons, 3 ER docs. We had everything. We were basically a level 2 trauma center in the country. Over time, the wars have necessitated drawing down and removing some of those large structures, so we don't have as many of the true hospitals. And in order to do that, you have to spread your resources out and change the mission, and the mission then becomes more mobile. And so what's changed since that one, where I had like a dorm room and you know, a TV and life was pretty good, to Western Afghanistan, where our equipment is in bags and boxes. We load it up on a stretcher, a wheeled stretcher, and put it in the back of a helicopter, and we take it out to where the fight is. We would take all of our equipment out to wherever the special operations guys were working and set up our little trauma room wherever they were going to be, near where they were, so we could bring them directly to near the helicopter, operate on them at the wherever we set up shop in a small house or something. And no OR lights, portable oxygen, portable electricity, and we changed from the patient being brought to us to going to the patient. And how do I see it changing in the future? You know, the Army's doing some amazing things with artificial intelligence and remote operating. There's a lot of talk about robotic surgery on the battlefield. And how long that'll be, I don't know. I don't know if probably not in my career, but they're doing a lot of things to try to get the patients treated sooner than ever before. And I think that's what is going to be the big change in the future.
Wow, awesome. I actually had the chance to, I believe a couple months ago, interview someone who is part of the Army Futures Command, and he is one of the innovative, I guess, medical professionals regarding artificial intelligence. And to tell you the excitement that's coming regarding artificial intelligence, it's telling you a lot. There's a lot of good things that's coming down the pipeline. So be on the lookout for it out there. Be on the lookout for it. But sir, we've got a couple more comments, and then I'd like to transition into some of, you know, we could talk regards to Army Reserve and opportunities that Captain Weaver could actually talk to the viewers all about. So we've got a couple comments here. The comments come from Captain McMurray. She says, thanks for sharing. And also Miss Kelsey Crow, she also says, thanks for sharing. I think more than anything, sir, people really appreciate the information that you're sharing with us. And going into these slides here that Captain Weaver would like to share, if you see something there that kind of resonates to what you're going through and what you're dealing with right now, go ahead and share maybe a point or two in joining us in that discussion. But let's go ahead and jump into the slides with Captain Weaver. And here it is, and we'll go into it immediately right here. And here we go. So Captain Weaver.
Everyone, I don't know about you guys, but I am like pumped to be in the Army today, especially after hearing some of the amazing stories and experiences that Colonel Danks has had. I mean, truly, it gets me excited to continue to serve and, you know, for future experiences. I had the opportunity to float to the burn unit at BAMC, and, you know, just the few shifts that I worked with burn patients were some of the most rewarding hours of my life, you know, taking care of those soldiers, you know, because they're at such a vulnerable state and they made such a sacrifice for our country. So it truly is an honor to be able to have a part in their care. Today, we're going to be just touching on opportunities as a physician, you know, no matter the specialty in the Army and Army Reserve. We focus on a little bit more on the Reserve, but I will touch on the Army as well, active duty.
Let's jump into the next slide.
So just a quick overview of the Army Reserve. You keep your civilian job, and the Army Reserve is a part-time commitment. The 1 weekend per month, 2 weeks a year is kind of, you know, the saying of what your commitment is. Of course, you know, you could have additional training or deployments. Deployments typically are 90 days boots on ground. They're not the longer deployments like active duty because they know that you have your practice that you have to get back to. Sometimes your deployment is actually a mobilization to a local active duty hospital when that active duty service member is deployed and you're utilized as a backfill for their position, because it's a lot faster to pull a reservist to fill in for an active duty doctor that is deployed than it is to hire that out as a, you know, a new civilian position. So that is typically, you know, something that you'll do a lot. There's also opportunities for humanitarian missions, depending on what's going on. And then, of course, depending on our conflicts and where there is Army presence in the world, there will be Army medicine providing that medical care. An amazing YouTube video that highlights, kind of what your annual training will look like is on YouTube. If you go on YouTube and search for the Combat Support Hospital Mass Casualty Medics 12 Japan on YouTube, it's about a 6-7 minute video. Actually, my coworker, Major Stouffer, when I first came into recruiting, she shared this video with me, just because I'm active duty, so I don't know what the reserve training looks like. So just anyone that's interested, what's my 2 weeks a year annual training going to be like? This is a great example of how they've set up a combat support hospital and ran through a mass casualty event. And in 2012, they went to Japan. So how cool is that?
Awesome. Let's jump into the next one.
We also have this program called the STRAP program, and this program is specifically for residents who have already matched into a residency, and it's that you're going to serve in the reserve afterwards. So just a couple quick notes about the STRAP program. It's open to a variety of specialties. You get a $2,200-ish stipend every month to help with your bills and, just kind of offset your expenses, because you're not making that much money while you're a resident. And then you actually start your commitment to the reserve after residency. So while you're in residency, you're focused on learning, you're focused on doing your job as a resident. You're not focused on having to go to drills. And one thing I do want to mention is that if you, decide that you want to be a doctor in the Army Reserve, when you attend your medical conferences and you, get training, you can count that towards your drill time. So it's just a matter of doing that paperwork. And so you can count, like let's say you have a convention or some training that you want to go to, because, we need you to be an expert surgeon in the Army. If you're going to attend a surgeon seminar or conference, that can count as well. So it's really not, it doesn't necessarily have to add a ton of commitment to your schedule. It's just augmenting and adding additional training and additional opportunities that you can have. And then for the STRAP program, you can also get student loan repayment up to $250,000, which can help out with your student loans.
Awesome.
So qualifications for STRAP, these are just kind of your general qualifications. You have to attend a medical school in the United States or Puerto Rico, or have your ECFMG. You need to be a U.S. citizen or have your green card, physically, morally qualified. That's something that if you're interested, you can reach out to me. I'll get you to the right person, and you can find out, do you meet these qualifications? And then you have to be accepted into a residency. Just kind of, those are the general guidelines.
Awesome.
We also have the same, it's a very similar program, and it's called FAP, but it's for active duty. So, the same concept, you're not going to be doing anything other than focusing on your residency while you're doing that. But afterwards, you're going to go in as a active duty doctor. And that's going to be your full-time job post-residency. You're still going to get that stipend, but you're also going to get a grant, which is $45,000, and that's going to be paid to you twice monthly. So that's going to help supplement your income about $72,000 a year. The obligation is slightly different, but it's the same qualifications to be accepted as the STRAP, and we need that for psychiatry, internal medicine, family medicine, general surgery, emergency medicine, and kind of that shifts year to year. But, if you are considering like that you want to do this full time, this is a great program for while you're a resident. And, something of note, if you are a active duty doctor, the Army will pay for your malpractice insurance, which is phenomenal. That's a huge expense that people have to pay for. And as an active duty physician, that is covered. next step, we also recruit physicians that are already practicing. So, these are the qualifications. We have bonuses, student loan repayments. They vary. I kind of have a couple slides later on that give a general idea of what the bonuses are for active duty and reserve, but your rank will be different because you're done with school. So that is just based off of how many years you've been a doctor, all of your experiences, and your education. And then, I'm going to use, Colonel Danks as an example, and he can chime in as well. But this is just an overview. There's so many different opportunities as an Army physician and, just in Army medicine in general. These are just a few different, very high level opportunities that you could have. First and foremost, you're caring for our war fighters and their families, and that is the core of what we do. But, there's education and research opportunities. Colonel Danks mentioned that they published something, that they practiced. And, there's many different opportunities for publications and research and, that kind of thing. And as I mentioned before, the humanitarian missions are there. And then one of the really cool things about deployment, and Colonel Danks, if you want to jump in on this, is that when you're deployed, a lot of times you're going to be deployed with other countries that are also providing medical care, and you're kind of a coalition force.
Yeah, that was one of the most fun things that I've done is work with other countries' physicians. You get to see a different take on things. We all sort of follow the same clinical practice guidelines, but they have a different and unique vision of medical care based on where they came from. On this last deployment, we were with a Czech Republic group, and they had medics and physicians, and it's interesting. You get to meet people, make new friends, and have opportunities to learn from other people.
Awesome. So Holly, did you want to expand any more in regards to this slide?
No, I think that, because Colonel Danks has been giving us great feedback and stories throughout the presentation. So I feel like he's hit that pretty well. I want to add just one thing on the command and leadership roles. No matter your role as a medical professional in the Army, I myself am an Army nurse. I've had the opportunity to be a company commander, in charge of approximately 90 to 100 soldiers of a medical company, responsible for their welfare, their training. I was their leader. And so that is not an opportunity I would have had outside of the military. And it was a non-medical job, but it was truly an amazing experience, having the impact and the ability to influence and lead others. So that is something, that I have seen doctors, they have led at higher level commands. Our current battalion commander is an optometrist. And, we just have seen that there are so many different unique leadership opportunities that are within the Army that you wouldn't get the opportunity to do in, the civilian world because you're in a clinical setting.
Awesome. So we've got go ahead, sir.
Let me throw something in there. So when I got back from Afghanistan this time, I transferred to aviation in the Army and to become a flight surgeon. And then I got moved up to the command position with the Army Reserve Aviation Command. So I oversee a couple hundred flight surgeons and flight PAs all over the Army Reserve throughout the United States. And again, it's an opportunity that, there's nothing like it in the civilian world. So it has its ups and its downs, but generally it's been a lot of fun and very interesting for me this far along. And so I'm going to put a plug in for that too. If you're a emergency medicine, family medicine, psychiatrist, it doesn't really matter from a physician standpoint, or a PA, and you're interested in flight medicine, the Army Reserve Aviation Command has dozens of openings for flight surgeons. They'll send you to the 6-week school and place you in an aviation unit where you take care of pilots and other flyers, and also get to fly in some of the aircraft that the Army has.
Awesome. So we've actually got the chance where there are some more questions actually coming in. And Holly, that was it for your presentation, correct?
Let me see. If
Let me
we
just
hit all
double
the high
check to see if
points.
I think we did. We were just kind of, I guess the rest of the presentation just kind of talks about the bonuses and opportunities for bonuses there. I don't know would you like to touch on that a little bit?
I can just briefly touch on it. Just kind of an overview. We have different incentive opportunities for active duty and reserve. This is the draft for this year. Every different specialty has a different bonus. So it varies based off your specialty, and that's for active duty. And then if you want to go to the next slide.
Hold on. Let's go right here.
We have different incentives for reserve positions. So, the sign-on bonuses are slightly different, but then we also have the opportunity to do the student loan repayment. And every year this is kind of changing based on funding, based on, the different specialties that we need, because our needs are ever evolving. Just like with COVID, our world has changed, we've adapted, and we have, changed with what different doctors and specialties that we need. So the bonuses kind of change as well. So they vary a little bit different every year. But whether you decide, the full-time or the part-time opportunity, if this is something that interests you, please reach out on LinkedIn, Instagram. You can call, text me, email me, and find out, what you could qualify for and what you could do. Because if this is something that's in your heart and you feel like you want, to serve your country, that feeling is not going to go away. And I actually had, I have a nurse that reached out to me this morning and had told me, I've been thinking about doing this for 7 years and the feeling has not gone away. And I'm worried that if I don't do it now, I'm going to regret this forever. And he's absolutely right. You don't know how something's going to turn out unless you go for it and you try. And kind of a question I ask myself when I'm considering things is, am I going to regret this more if I don't do it, or am I going to regret this more if I do it? And more times than not, I'm going to regret it if I don't do it. So I say go for it. So if you even have an inkling of interest, please reach out in one of the many ways that I have, DM, text, and I'll get back to you and I will set you in the right direction. But we have varied incentives, but we have something for everyone.
Absolutely. Looks like we got 2 more questions, and I think, the questions are coming in fast and furious now. So let's go ahead and pop up the next question. I believe either one of you could actually answer this question here. And so the question is, can you speak more about the humanitarian missions / effort? Who'd like to go first?
I can briefly talk about it, and then if Colonel Danks has anything else to add, that would be great. So when I was in company command, we would get these taskers, and we would have to put soldiers in these taskings, and then they would go out and do these humanitarian missions. So just a couple different humanitarian missions that were kind of going on in the last couple of years. We had humanitarian missions to Africa, Honduras, and Senegal. And I actually put my name in the hat to go to Honduras. It was a 3-week humanitarian mission where they went and helped out a local hospital, but it provided us training in those kind of austere conditions where we don't have the resources that we have stateside. So it kind of mocks like what a deployment would be like for us. So, of course, I wanted to go do this humanitarian mission, but they wouldn't pick me because I was in command. But I had several soldiers that went and said it was great training. It was, an awesome experience getting to experience a different culture, that training. And then just, like Colonel Danks mentioned, integrating with a different cultures, their implementation of medical practice, it's similar, but they have different takes on things. So, your knowledge base grows so much when you collaborate and you put 2 different viewpoints together.
Awesome. Yeah, I did a humanitarian mission to Guatemala a couple of years ago through I was with a hospital unit in Kansas City, and it was amazing. And you talk about lack of resources; they don't have anything. I saw some fantastic cases. We did a lot of general surgery. We did some trauma surgery. Just in general, the whole thing was very, very good for learning about how to do it with less. It's the only time I've done a bowel obstruction because their bowel was so full of worms. We had to dig the worms out of their bowel. So you get You get a unique
Wow.
perspective of the world.
Wow. Wow. And so we have an additional question here. Let me go ahead and put it on the screen for us. Thanks for that first question, Kelsey Crow. The question is also with deployments, what specialties are most likely to be deployed? A question I have is I'm worried I will join, but they won't get deployed overseas.
Well, I mean, in medicine, it's everything. Everybody gets deployed. You know, they need lab people, they need ICU nurses, they need OR nurses, ER nurses, just about anything. And honestly, if you want to deploy, you can deploy. There's plenty of opportunity. There are ways to volunteer to deploy, or you can sit back. A lot of people just sit back and wait for the rotation to come through. But if you're talking from a medical standpoint, obviously the surgical specialties are probably more likely, anesthesia. But we need, you know, the internal medicine, the family medicine. We need all of that. That's support at the hospitals. And I was deployed with CRNAs, anesthesiologists, an orthopedic surgeon, vascular surgeons. It's all specialties. It's really about what you want to do. If there are plenty of opportunities. There's no shortage of or slots for deployment. As long as you can be cleared to deploy from a health standpoint and everything, then you'll be good to go.
Okay, good deal. So the opportunity is there. Go ahead, Holly.
So I actually have a viewer that is messaging me, you know, don't forget to hit on this because, you know, this is an amazing opportunity. Colonel McDougall is watching. He's an Army nurse. He's watching from Germany right now. And he texts me, you know, don't forget to hit on this. So I want to bring up the opportunities for deployment, you know, for things like COVID. So we had a great response in New York, and we're truly at the forefront of setting up, you know, additional hospitals and providing extra care, and, you know, our laboratory officers working on, you know, testing and vaccinations, and truly at the forefront of medicine. And that, you know, with COVID-19 happening and coming out, that is proven that we have to be a ready and adaptable force that is ready to fight the invisible enemy, you know, because this is something that none of us have seen in our lifetime. And we, you know, it has just been a whirlwind of changing day by day information of different things that we're having to do and innovations that we're having to come up with to fight the fight against COVID-19. So there are those opportunities as well. You know, I have been in recruiting, so I didn't get a chance. And then I was also pregnant, but, you know, active duty nurses, doctors, you know, they went and they helped in New York, as well as, you know, reservists too. And then something that, you know, the hurricane that happened Puerto Rico, I believe it was 2017, you know, it was just total devastation. And there was an OR nurse that I worked with that actually deployed to Puerto Rico and provided medical care, and I think was there for like 3 or 4 months. And, you know, they just were totally devastated. You know, their entire economy and infrastructure, and the Army and other services came in and provided that medical care and set up, you know, the hospital services that they needed. So deployments are of many shapes, many sizes, many opportunities. It totally depends on what natural disaster has happened, what pandemic is going on, or what conflict. But the opportunities are there. And if you want to seek out those opportunities, there's even more opportunities there for you.
Awesome. Awesome. And so we have 2 questions. I think they're directed to Dr. Danks. And thank you so much, Ms. Kelsey Crow, for your questions. The first question is, what possibilities exist for active duty surgeons to be taken care of Special Operations Forces downrange?
Lots. The Army's going more to that. You know, everything downrange now is done by special ops. You know, the infantry and armored divisions are more kind of guarding bases. I'm not saying that they're not going out battling, but the operators are the SOF guys, the Special Operations Forces, and the active duty surgeons are, you know, they fill a lot of deployments. I was supposed to deploy again in February, but because we got back late from this last deployment, I wasn't eligible to go again. And they filled that spot with an active duty surgeon. So there are plenty. Also, when we were in country, they brought in an Osprey, which is the helicopter airplane combination. And on that was all active duty surgeons and anesthesia providers with their mobile operating room on the airplane. And their whole job is to go out and pick up injured special operations guys and operate on them while they're flying. So there are lots of opportunities for that. The other thing I want to throw out there about deployments, especially for reservists, it's not like you find out 10 days, for the most part, you don't find out 10 days before you're going. You know well in advance that you're going to be going. You can plan ahead, and you don't have to worry about, a 5-day notice. That's not to say it couldn't happen. I mean, natural disasters we don't have any control over, and you could end up going to Haiti or somewhere for an earthquake or a hurricane on very short notice. But by and large, it's going to be, plenty of information well ahead of time.
Awesome. Good question, Joseph Torian. And so we've got, it looks like one more question coming in here. And thank you all for your questions that you've been sending in. It comes in from Mr. Ryan Becker. What kind of opportunities within special operations are available for different types of medical providers? More specifically, some of the experiences Dr. Danks has participated in, Special Operations Forces, JSOC, etc.
Yeah, so again, the opportunities are for all types of surgical specialists, orthopedic, general trauma, vascular, thoracic, cardiothoracic. The surgeon that replaced me in Afghanistan was a cardiothoracic surgeon. He's going to function as a general surgeon. In Africa, everything is special operations. The bases there are usually Air Force bases or small Army bases. And so these teams are going out with the soft T guys, flying out to the remote locations and setting up their operating room while they plan to go kick a door or maybe just have a meeting with village elders or something like that. So there are lots of opportunities. We had with us, as I said, a CRNA, orthopedic surgeon, 2 medics, and a OR/ICU nurse. So those are the provider types that are going on these missions. But I would imagine that kind of no matter what you do, if you're maybe a PACU nurse, there's no reason you couldn't be an OR/ICU nurse on one of these missions. Or if you're a emergency medicine physicians are starting to get picked up for these jobs also. So there are a lot of options for different providers.
Awesome. So really good question. I appreciate that, Mr. Becker. And I guess in conclusion, I'd like to say, Holly, go ahead. Would you like to add on to
sorry. So my phone has actually it's starting to go off, and we're starting to get people messaging me, saying they're interested in, and we have a Colin. He said he wrote on Facebook, but I don't see it on our thread. So I had him send it to me. He said, Dr. Danks, my name is Second Lieutenant Hancock, United States Air Force, and I'm currently a third-year medical student who plans to go into surgery. I'm curious what puzzle pieces came together where you were in medical school to pursue surgery, and then what puzzle pieces came together to pursue a fellowship in trauma and burn. So he's third-year medical student that's wanting to go into surgery.
Yeah, well, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician, which makes people who know me laugh. But I really thought I was going to be a pediatrician, that I had a surgery experience as a 4th-year medical student that I just loved, and I knew there was no going back. And so I was a late bloomer as far as surgery goes, but I was able to get into a very good residency and complete it. When I was in residency, I decided I wanted to do critical care, and the option was three hours away at the University of Iowa to do burn and critical care. And that was sort of a segue, and I always knew I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. And back when I graduated from my program 2004, any surgeon with critical care background was going to be a trauma surgeon if you wanted to be. So I took a job at a level 1 trauma center at a academic facility. And for my entire career, I've done level 1 trauma. It's always at some location. That opened the door for opportunities in the Army. Early on in the wars, anybody who could go, they were sent. And as the wars have kind of worn on, they try more and more to get critical care trauma people downrange because they had the experience to take care of the injured war fighters. So I hope that answers the question. That the short is I always wanted to do both. I always wanted to do trauma, critical care. I always wanted to be in the Army. And the opportunities just came together at about the same time towards the end of my residency.
Awesome. Awesome. I think, sir, Holly, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, I had just one closing thing, and then I'll have you officially close this. All
right, go ahead. Go ahead. Do your thing, Holly. Do your thing.
Okay, so I just want to say, that I am so impressed with the questions that we got in today. With the interest and engagement. It's truly pumping me up to see the fact that Army medicine is becoming, more popular, and we are getting a greater reach out there. And people are asking, the questions about their futures and their careers. And, I kind of think about this almost every day. And there has never been a day where I regretted my decision to become a medical professional in the Army. There's been days that have been hard and that I've been frustrated and, that have been challenging. But my life has been so positively, it's had such a positive impact because of being in the Army. So just ask yourself this question, do you want to find out more information? Is this something you could possibly interested in? Being an emergency room doctor, being a general surgeon, if you're a nurse, we need your medical expertise to take care of our tomorrow in our Army. So thank you so much for all of your engagement. My phone is blowing up right now.
Yeah,
with people that are interested, and honestly, thank you so much, Colonel Danks, because your participation, your dynamic storytelling, and just sharing your personal experience is what is leading people to be interested, because they're not interested because of my PowerPoint presentation. That's, not, it's not anything groundbreaking. They want to hear about the stories where you were able to save someone that had more than half their body burned and walked out of the hospital 60 some days later and is alive because you asked to use the resources and you made the call to take care of him. That's what they want to hear about. So thank you so much for your time.
You bet.
Before we close, we actually have, wow, the questions are coming in fast and furious. Captain Weaver, I know you've got an appointment that you've got to do, so I don't want to keep you on.
I can stay on for 5 more minutes.
Okay, 5 more minutes. That'll work. Let's go ahead and add the questions. Here's the question. Colonel Danks, sir, you mentioned many surgical specialties. Do you also see EM physicians involved in these operations, special operations and forward surgical teams?
Yes, as I mentioned, that active duty group who flew in on the Osprey had an ER doctor with them. ER docs are so important in these missions. They have a lot of skills that they bring to the table, and so they're being more and more involved in the forward surgical teams and the special operations teams. It's not just surgeons. It's ER surgeons and critical care nurses.
Awesome.
Very definitely.
Good question. Appreciate that, Samuel Hankins. And so the next question, I think it's also for you, sir. Samuel, I think they meant to say sir, are there 2 EM physicians for each forward resuscitative surgical team? One of us here is in Germany, commanded by an ED doc. I think that's the question being... He's addressing the question. Yes.
So that's from Colonel McDougall, and he is currently stationed in Germany. So he was helping answer that question. So he's helping us recruit.
Okay,
thank you, sir.
Okay. We appreciate that, Dr. Shern, for that, Colonel McDougall. I really appreciate that. Team, I think this has been an absolutely wonderful presentation. Captain Weaver, as always, wonderful working with you. I'm looking forward to the next presentation that we've got going on next week. And as always, and Colonel Danks, we really appreciate you coming and just sharing your information, sharing that, the raw answers that people are looking for. And I think you definitely may have inspired some future medical professionals to join our ranks. So we
My
really
cell phone
appreciate
says
you
yes,
doing
he
that.
has inspired people, because I have
Absolutely.
people that are wanting to, doctors, aspiring doctors that are wanting to find out more information because of what he has said and what he is saying. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you, Colonel McDougall, for answering some of those questions. I know you have a different vantage point from an active duty view than I do as a reservist. So I appreciate your input, sir.
Awesome, awesome. So, team, let's go ahead and close off our discussion, and we look forward to hopefully in the future working again and having a good presentation again.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so in closing, I say that was an absolutely wonderful presentation given by Colonel Danks and Captain Weaver. If you are looking for any points of contact to join our ranks, there's the information right there in the bottom of the page. You can reach out right now to Captain Weaver. As you see during the discussion, she was getting pings left and right, left and right. And so send her that contact, send her an information, shoot her a text. She will reply back to you and she will square you away if you're inspired to join our ranks in Army medicine. And as I say in closing every single time, take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of others. Army strong. Army medicine is Army strong.